First contact fiasco. The orbital research station Athena gleamed like a silver spider against Earth's blue backdrop, its 8 habitation pods extending from a central hub where humanity's brightest minds work to understand the cosmos. Dr. Marcus Chen stood before the viewport in Laboratory 4, watching the approaching stellary vessel with a mixture of scientific curiosity and personal apprehension. Impressive, isn't it? Admiral Rice said beside him. That ship traveled 18 light-years in just 3 months. Marcus nodded, his eyes fixed on the crystalline structure of the alien craft. The Stellary Confederation's phase shift technology makes our fastest ships look like covered wagons. He adjusted his lab coat nervously. And they've sent their high ambassador to discuss collaborative research. No pressure. The Admiral chuckled. That's why you're here, Doctor. Your work in xenobiology is unparalleled. If anyone can bridge the gap between human and stellary physiology, it's you. Marcus wasn't so certain. His studies of the limited biological samples provided by the Stellary over the past 5 years had revealed fascinating differences and unexpected similarities, but there remained vast knowledge gaps. The opportunity to work directly with Stellary scientists was unprecedented, a chance to advance human understanding by decades, perhaps centuries. The docking announcement echoed through the station. It was time. Ambassador Nyxera of the Stellary Confederation was tall, nearly 7 feet, with luminescent skin that shifted between deep indigo and violet depending on the light. Patterns of bioluminescent markings traced her temples and forearms, pulsing gently with what Marcus recognized as emotional indicators. Her 4-fingered hands moved with fluid grace as she greeted the human delegation. "We extend cosmic harmony to our human colleagues," she said, her voice melodic despite the translation device. The Stellary Confederation values this exchange of knowledge. Marcus found himself appointed as the ambassador's primary scientific liaison, tasked with showing her the xenobiology facilities and discussing research protocols. Along with Nyxera in his laboratory, he became acutely aware of the vast differences between their species, and yet an unexpected ease of communication developed between them. "Your theories on cross-species genetic markers are remarkably advanced," Nyxera commented, examining his research displays. "Few races we've encountered have developed such understanding without extensive contact." "Human curiosity," Marcus replied with a smile. "We've been imagining alien life for centuries before we found it. Sometimes I think our fiction prepared us better than our science." The ambassador's markings pulsed with what the briefing materials identified as amusement. The Stellary value imagination as a precursor to discovery. Perhaps we are not so different. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Nyxera established a productive research partnership. They found unexpected commonalities in basic cellular structures despite evolving on worlds 18 light-years apart. Both species used DNA, though the Stellary version contained additional amino acids not found in Earth organisms. The incident occurred during their analysis of cellular regeneration, a minor laboratory accident, a broken sample container, exposed them both to a mixture of their blood samples and experimental compounds. "Containment protocols engage," announced the station's AI as decontamination fields activated around them. "Ambassador, are you all right?" Marcus asked, concerned about potential cross-species contamination. Nyxera's markings flashed with alarm, then steadied. "I am unharmed, Dr. Chen. However, this exposure requires documentation and monitoring." Standard protocols demanded complete biomedical scans for both of them. During Nyxera's examination, the station's medical officer discovered something unprecedented. "This can't be right," Dr. Sharma muttered, running the scan 3 times. "Ambassador, according to these readings, you're experiencing cellular changes consistent with stellary reproduction." Marcus, standing nearby, felt the blood drain from his face. Nyxera's skin darkened to deep purple, her markings flashing rapidly. "Impossible." The Confederation's scientists determined human and stellary reproductive processes were incompatible without extensive intervention. "Apparently not," Dr. Sharma replied, displaying the scan results. The markers are unmistakable. Within hours, the incident became an interstellar diplomatic crisis. The Stellari ship in orbit went on high alert. Communications with the Confederation capital became tense. "They're saying it's a deliberate act," Admiral Rice informed Marcus during an emergency meeting. "Some kind of bioweapon test or attempt to compromise their ambassador." "That's absurd," Marcus protested. "It was an accident. We don't even understand how it happened." The Admiral's expression remained grim. "The Stellari elders are claiming that, intentional or not, you are now bound to Ambassador Nix Era under their highest law. Apparently, among their kind, biological compatibility to this degree is considered sacred, a cosmic alignment that cannot be ignored." Marcus ran his hands through his hair in disbelief. "You're telling me that according to Stellari law, we're what? Married?" "More than that," came Nixera's voice from the doorway. She entered, her usual diplomatic composure replaced by intense focus. "We are Casveran, life-bonded. In our history, such bonds have occurred only 12 times, always between Stellari of different ancestral lines. Never with another species." "Ambassador," Admiral Rice began, "surely given the circumstances." "The circumstances are irrelevant," Nix Era interrupted. "The biological recognition has occurred. My body has already begun the adaptation process that occurs only with true genetic compatibility." Her markings pulsed with what Marcus now recognized as determination. "The High Council considers this a threat to our biological sovereignty. And what do you consider it?" Marcus asked quietly. Nix Era turned to him, her alien eyes unreadable. "I have lived 200 of your Earth years, Dr. Chen. I have served as diplomat to 17 species. I have never encountered anything like this." Her markings shifted to a pattern he hadn't seen before. "I consider it fascinating." Over the next days, tensions escalated. 3 more Stellari vessels arrived in Earth orbit, their purpose unclear but their presence threatening. Meanwhile, Earth's governments convened emergency sessions, military forces went on high alert, and scientific teams worldwide scrambled to understand what had happened. Marcus and Nix Era found themselves at the center of a potential interstellar conflict. Isolated in a secure section of the station, they worked tirelessly to understand the biological mechanisms that had created their unprecedented situation. "It's the additional nucleotides in your DNA," Marcus explained, pointing to the holographic model floating between them. "They're somehow compatible with specific sequences in human DNA. My DNA specifically. The regenerative compound we were testing acted as a catalyst." "Impossible by random chance," Nix Era responded, her scientific mind engaging despite the personal implications. "The mathematical probability is beyond astronomical." Marcus hesitated before sharing his theory. "What if it's not random? What if there's a connection between our species we haven't discovered yet?" The ambassador's markings pulsed rapidly. "You suggest an ancient contact, shared ancestry. It would explain the inexplicable compatibility." Marcus projected another diagram. "Look at these genetic markers. They appear in both our species but aren't expressed in any other life form on Earth." As they delved deeper into their research, the political situation deteriorated. The Stellari Confederation had issued an ultimatum: return their ambassador and provide all research related to the incident, or face consequences. Earth's nations were divided on how to respond, with many advocating for standing firm against what seemed like alien aggression. The breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. Marcus discovered ancient Stellari texts in the database provided for their research, creation myths that spoke of seeding stars where the ancestors had left pieces of themselves. "Earth's coordinates are in this ancient star map," he showed Nix Era, his excitement overriding protocol. "Your people might have visited Earth thousands of years ago." The ambassador's skin paled to a light lavender, a sign of profound surprise. "If true, this changes everything." Her markings shifted to a resolution pattern. "We must present this to both our peoples immediately." As Nyxera prepared to contact the High Council with their findings, she paused, looking at Marcus with an intensity that transcended species. Whatever comes next, Dr. Chen, know that this bond between us, whether by cosmic chance or ancient design, may have prevented a conflict neither of our species could afford. Marcus nodded, suddenly aware of the weight of their discovery. Sometimes accidents make the best discoveries. The ambassador's markings pulsed once in agreement. Indeed, and sometimes, Dr. Chen, they changed the course of worlds. Diplomatic solutions. The Stellari flagship Cosmic Harmony dwarfed every human vessel in Earth's orbit, its crystalline structure refracting sunlight in prismatic patterns across space. Inside its diplomatic chamber, Marcus Chen felt distinctly out of place among the tall, luminescent forms of the Stellari High Council representatives. The human speaks of ancient connections without proof. Elder Vexmore's voice resonated through the chamber, his deep blue skin darkening with skepticism. This convenient theory appears only after the contamination of our ambassador's biological sovereignty. Marcus stood firm despite his unease. The genetic evidence is compelling. The mathematical models show the compatibility between Ambassador Nyxera and myself cannot be random chance. And yet you admit this was triggered by an accident, countered another elder, her markings pulsing with what Marcus now recognized as suspicion. The greatest discoveries in human history often began with accidents, he replied. Penicillin, X-rays, radioactivity, all found by chance, but understood through science. The debate had raged for hours, with Earth representatives on video link from the Athena station watching tensely. The fragile peace between humans and the Stellari Confederation hung in the balance. 3 days had passed since the ultimatum, extended only because of Nyxera's intervention and the intriguing theory Marcus had presented. Ambassador Nyxera, who had remained silent through much of the proceedings, finally rose from her seat. Her pregnancy, if that was the right term for the Stellari reproductive process, wasn't visible yet, but her altered biological state had been confirmed by multiple scans. Honored elders, fellow representatives of the Confederation, her voice commanded instant attention. I have served as your ambassador to 17 species across 8 sectors. Never have I brought dishonor to our people. Her markings pulse with formal patterns indicating absolute truth according to Stellari custom. I believe Dr. Chen's theory warrants investigation. The genetic markers he identified exist in our most ancient bloodlines, those we trace to the original seeders themselves. She projected a complex DNA model into the center of the chamber. These sequences appear in no other species we have encountered in our 18,000 years of space travel, except humans. A murmur rippled through the Stellari delegation. Marcus observed the rapid color changes and marking patterns that indicated intense discussion happening on levels he couldn't perceive. Elder Vexmore's markings flashed with reluctant consideration. Even if true, this accidental bonding remains unprecedented and potentially dangerous. What prevents humans from attempting to replicate this process? To create biological weapons targeting our physiology? Admiral Garcia, speaking from the Earth delegation, leaned forward on the video link. The Athena Accord we signed 5 years ago explicitly prohibits biological weaponization. Humanity honors its agreements. Elder Vexmore. Words on quantum paper, dismissed the elder. Meanwhile, our ambassador carries human genetic material within her sacred life vessel. Marcus stepped forward, a gesture he knew was bold by Stellari protocol. What if this isn't a threat, but an opportunity? The compatibility between our species suggests a shared heritage far more significant than either of our civilizations realized. He activated his datapad, projecting ancient human archaeological sites alongside Stellari ancestral temples. The structural similarities were striking. Earth's oldest civilizations speak of sky people who brought knowledge. Your histories tell of seeding distant shores. What if those aren't myths but records of actual contact? Dr. Katri, Earth's leading xenoarchaeologist, added from the video feed. The similarities between early Sumerian symbolism and stellary ancestral glyphs are remarkable. We've catalogued over 300 correlations that cannot be explained by parallel evolution. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over both delegations. Nick's era moved to stand beside Marcus, a gesture not lost on the stellary elders. The life bond I share with Dr. Chen may be the key to understanding our shared past, she said. Rather than viewing it as contamination, perhaps we should see it as reconnection. Elder Zillera, the eldest of the council, and thus far silent, finally spoke. Her ancient voice carried the weight of centuries. In our oldest songs, there is a verse. The circle returns to its beginning when distant children recognize their shared stars. Her pale lavender skin seemed almost translucent as she rose. I have lived 342 of Earth's years. I have seen first contact with 23 species. Never have I witnessed such a profound biological recognition between different worlds. She approached Marcus and Nyxera, her movements deliberate and ceremonial. If the human speaks truth, if our people share ancestry from the original Cedars, then this life bond is not an aberration but a fulfillment of ancient design. The tension in the chamber shifted. Marcus felt something change in the atmosphere, literally, as the Stellari adjusted their ship's environmental controls to patterns that indicated formal consideration rather than confrontation. Over the next 12 hours, scientific teams from both species worked feverishly, combining archaeological data, genetic research, and astronomical records. Marcus found himself working alongside stellary geneticists who, once skeptical, now approached the question with intense scientific curiosity. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Earth's fossil record combined with stellary celestial archives. There was a mass extinction event on Earth approximately 65 million years ago, explained Dr. Katri on the video link. We've always attributed it to an asteroid impact. The stellary records show unusual activity from our ancestors in this sector during that same period, added Zilvik, the Confederation's chief archivist. They describe preserving essence before the cleansing fire. Marcus felt a chill as the pieces aligned. They knew the asteroid was coming. They preserved genetic material from Earth species, including early mammals that would eventually evolve into humans, and seeded that material into compatible worlds, including our homeworld. Nyxera continued, the implications dawning on her. We are distant cousins, separated by time and space, but carrying the same fundamental pattern. The evidence mounted. Shared genetic markers that couldn't be explained by convergent evolution, archaeological parallels between Earth's oldest civilizations and ancient stellary settlements, astronomical data showing stellary vessels in Earth's vicinity during key periods of human advancement. When the final briefing was presented to both delegations, even Elder Vexmore's markings pulsed with reluctant acceptance. If this is true, the Elder conceded, then the life bond between Ambassador Nyxera and the human Dr. Chen represents not contamination but reunion, the first true reconnection of our ancestral lines in 65 million years. Admiral Garcia leaned forward. Then we propose this incident become not a cause for conflict, but the foundation for deeper cooperation, a joint research initiative to explore our shared heritage. Elder Zillera's markings pulsed with approval, and recognition of the life bond as legitimate under both stellary and human law, with all protections such status conveys. The negotiations that followed were complex, but marked by a new spirit of cooperation. The stellary ultimatum was withdrawn. Joint scientific teams were established. Cultural exchanges were proposed. As the formal agreements were being finalized, Marcus found a moment alone with Nyxera in one of the Cosmic Harmony's observation domes, Earth visible as a blue marble against the black of space. "Did you ever imagine our accident would lead to this?" he asked, still processing the implications for both their peoples and themselves. Nyxera's markings pulsed with thoughtful consideration. The Stellari have a concept, Zereth, which translates roughly as destined accident. events that appear random but serve a greater cosmic purpose. She turned to face him, her alien features now somehow familiar. I have lived 2 centuries believing our peoples were separate evolutionary branches. Now I find we are connected by design older than either of our civilizations, and personally connected in a way neither of us anticipated, Marcus added, gesture indicating the life bond between them. Yes, her markings shifted to a pattern he was beginning to recognize as indicating personal rather than diplomatic communication. Among the stellari, life bonds are not merely biological. They are partnerships of mind and purpose. Marcus nodded, understanding the implication. On Earth, we have many forms of partnership. Some are political, some practical, some. He hesitated, uncertain how to express concepts of human relationship to an alien ambassador. Some are chosen. Nixera completed his thought, as we must now choose how to define ours. Beyond the biological reality and political implications, below them, Earth rotated slowly, while behind them, the stellary homeworld shone as a distant star. Between worlds, between species, they stood at the beginning of something unprecedented. Whatever form it takes, Marcus said finally, I believe our partnership has already accomplished something remarkable. Nixera's markings pulsed with agreement. Indeed, our peoples stood at the brink of conflict, and now face a future of cooperation. Her 4-fingered hand gestured to the stars beyond the viewport, and perhaps answers to questions both our species have asked since we first looked to the sky. 6 months later, the research outpost Convergence orbited at Earth-Moon Lagrange Point 4, staffed by human and stellary scientists working to understand their shared heritage. At its heart stood a laboratory where Dr. Marcus Chen and Ambassador Nixera, now co-directors of the Ancestral Genome Project, led teams mapping the connections between their species. And within Nixera, protected by both human and stellary medical science, grew the first child of reconnected ancestral lines, living proof that sometimes the greatest discoveries begin with accidents, and the future belongs to those willing to embrace the unexpected. As humanity and the Stellari Confederation began their journey of rediscovery, the stars themselves seemed to watch with ancient patience. The circle, as Elder Zil Era had quoted, was returning to its beginning.